Hi, y'all. We're excited to have you here and want to welcome you to Flatiron School's Looking for Cyber Threats in Alderaan Places, another play on our May the 4th Be With You series. My name is Corey Mickelson, and I am the event coordinator here with Flatiron School. A big part of my job is hosting these free introductory kind of lunch and learns like today's event to give you all an opportunity to meet some of our team and get a better feel of the Flatiron School experience. So quick reminder, we're using the chat as the main source of communication, so make sure to set that little blue button from host and panelist to everyone so we can all chat together. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest for today. We have Zach Little is here representing our admissions team. Go ahead and say hi, Zach. And then we have Alex Hemminger here. He is here representing our cybersecurity team. So go ahead and take it away, Alex.
Thanks, Corey. And just get a quick thumbs up for everybody that can see the screen for me. All right, fantastic. Welcome everyone to the Flatiron May the 4th Be With You presentation. It's a little bit belated, I guess, but we're still in May, so we're okay. I am Alex Hemminger, and just to give you a bit of background, I am a senior instructor for cybersecurity here at Flatiron, and I am a huge Star Wars geek. I also have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance, and prior to becoming an instructor, I was a level 2 security analyst in a security operations center, or what's called a SOC, for a leading global IT firm. So today I would like to discuss the threats that we face in the field of cybersecurity. Of course, we could spend hours upon hours, even days upon days, talking about the various threats that exist. So for our purposes today, we're going to focus on just a handful of the top cyber threats. Before doing that, though, I would like to talk briefly about what it is exactly that we are protecting. So cybersecurity is defined as the practice of protecting computers, networks, network systems, and the data they contain from attack. And at the core of cybersecurity is what we call the CIA triad. The triad has three components: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality, as you may surmise, refers to preventing the unauthorized disclosure of sensitive and private information. This could be proprietary data for an enterprise, or say PII, or personally identifiable information for users and customers. Integrity refers to ensuring that data is not modified or deleted by any unauthorized persons. And then finally, availability, which is ensuring that the information and the systems that contain it are available when needed. So with these foundational concepts in mind, let's take a moment to look at the threat actors, or the malicious actors, which perpetrate the attacks which we will be discussing. So many people associate the term hacker with threat actor, but not all hackers are criminals. So basically, there are three categories of hackers. We begin with our white hats. These are our ethical hackers. These are the good guys. For example, SOC analysts, threat hunters, penetration testers. On the opposite end of the scale, we have the black hats. These are the bad guys, the cyber criminals. They are typically motivated by monetary gain. And then in between, we have what we call the gray hats. These individuals are motivated by the thrill of the hack. They look to expose vulnerabilities, but because they do not have authorization to conduct their activities, they can still cause damage and disruptions. They don't have the malicious intent of a black hat hacker, but they can still be a nuisance because what they're doing isn't sanctioned. And that leads us to the types of threat actors that we encounter. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. So these are just sort of the top ones that we will come across. We begin with script kiddies. Script kiddies do not possess the skill of an experienced hacker. They rely on malicious scripts written by others. But while script kiddies aren't known for their hacking skills, they can still be a risk and they can still inflict damage. Next up is our hacktivists, which act to further an agenda or a political goal. We also have our suicide hackers. They also act to further an agenda, but they're not deterred by the possibility of, nor do they concern themselves with the possibility of getting caught. We also have our state or nation-sponsored hackers. This would include APTs, which we'll talk more about in just a moment. And then finally, our insiders. This would include both intentional and negligent, and we'll also cover the insider threat a bit more in depth in just a moment. Now, what should be noted is that these various attacks that we're going to be discussing seek to compromise one or more components of the CIA triad. So before we dive into these cyber threats, let's just take a moment to look at the effects that these attacks can have on businesses and the individuals that are targeted. So, as you might imagine, that the damages caused by cyber attacks can be devastating to a business and individuals alike, and they include business interruption. So obviously, if a business is not able to conduct normal day-to-day operations, that can be costly. So for example, if a website goes down, any revenue from that site is going to be lost until services are restored. You also have reputational damage, which shakes confidence of not only the existing customers, but it's going to make it difficult to attract new customers. And the impact of reputational damage can be long-lasting. There's also the concern of theft, both in data and identity. So this would include sensitive business data such as customer information and proprietary data. And this can affect the business's customers, as the individuals whose data have been exposed are now placed at risk of identity theft. And if you know someone who's been the victim of identity theft, then you know how difficult and costly it can be to resolve. You also have legal liabilities. If it is determined that the business did not take appropriate actions to implement security, that is, the business did not perform its due diligence, then that enterprise can be subject to fines and civil settlements. In addition, the enterprise can expect increased insurance premiums, increased interest rates for borrowed capital, and potentially reduced contract revenue. So in order to quantify these losses in terms of dollars, we can look to the 2022 IBM Ponemon Institute survey. And the survey found that the average global cost of a data breach in 2022 was $4.35 million. So no small sum. In the US, that cost is more than double at $9.44 million. And if we look in the healthcare industry, which is a popular target, the average breach ran over $10 million. But it's not just the large organizations who are being targeted by these attacks, as 43% of the attacks that are out there are directed against SMBs or small and medium-sized businesses. Now, BullGuard, which is a anti-malware and internet security service firm, commissioned research, and it revealed that small and medium businesses in the UK are at an increased risk of cyber attack. And this is particularly concerning as 1 in 5 SMBs use no endpoint security. Their systems are just left wide open. The study also found that 43% of SMB owners have no cybersecurity defense plan in place. And again, that's concerning, as they just have no contingency for if they become a victim of attack. So in total, in 2022, the cost of damages from cyber attacks reached $7 trillion. That's trillion with a T. Now, according to Cybersecurity Ventures, the total cost of damage caused by cyber criminals is expected to reach a staggering $10 trillion by 2025. So we're talking about an immense cost to businesses and individuals. So now that we've looked at the threat actors and the damages they cause and some of the consequences, let's look at some of the weapons that they use. So I'll just go over this list initially, and then after that, we'll go into a more detailed description of each attack. So we begin with malware and move to social engineering, our advanced persistent threats, which we mentioned briefly, insider threats, and then finally zero-day attacks. So let's take a brief look at each of these attacks and what we can do to combat them. So we'll begin with malicious software or malware. And this itself is a varied list, again, not exhaustive. These are some of the more common malware that you'll find. We'll start off with viruses. So viruses, these require human interaction to spread, and they cause damage to hardware, software, data, and their intent is to disrupt systems, and they can result in data loss and data leakage. Now, on the flip side of that are worms, which they are a self-replicating malware, which spread to other systems without human interaction. Still, they cause damage, they consume network bandwidth, they overload servers, and they can also damage host computers. Next on our list are Trojans or rats, which we would call remote access Trojans. Now, Trojans are hidden in legitimate applications or programs. The term is derived from Greek mythology for the war between the Achaeans and the city of Troy. The city was impregnable, but the Greeks constructed a Trojan horse with soldiers hidden inside. And once the inhabitants of the city took the horse in, the soldiers came out, opened the gate, and let the invading army in. So that's pretty much just how a Trojan works. Hidden inside a legitimate software. When you get it, run it, then your Trojan is released. The malicious payload is released. And these remote access Trojans provide a covert remote access to the target system, meaning a hidden back door to your system that you're not aware of, but which allows the attacker to come and go as they please. Next up is ransomware. This is software which prevents access to the target system unless a ransom is paid. And we'll discuss ransomware a bit more in depth in just a moment. And we also have our spyware and our keyloggers. These are software that collect information about the user without the user's knowledge or consent. So this is going to include passwords, account information, and the like. And keyloggers specifically are recording the keystrokes that you type in on your keyboard. And finally, we have rootkits. These provide administrative access to a computer while concealing its presence, which makes it extremely difficult to detect or remove. So that administrative access to that system is what makes the rootkit so dangerous. Now, in regards to the CIA triad, this wide variety of malware poses a threat to all three components of the triad. So, for instance, ransomware compromises availability, and that the affected data and the systems are not available. It also affects integrity as the data is encrypted by the attackers. Another example would be spyware, which seeks to steal private information and then thus compromises confidentiality. So let's look at ransomware. So given the volume of malware that exists, it's not possible to cover all of the various types in the time that we have available. But I would like to discuss a type of malware that has been increasing in popularity among cyber criminals, and that is, of course, ransomware. You've likely heard about ransomware recently in the news. Now, this is a type of malware that threatens to publish or blocks access to data or computer systems, usually via encryption, until the victim pays a ransom fee to the attacker. Now, in many cases, the ransom demand comes with a deadline, so that if the victim doesn't pay the ransom in time, then either the data is gone forever or the ransom increases. So on this screen that we're looking at here, this is what was presented to victims who were affected by the WannaCry ransomware. Now, WannaCry encrypts a system's files until the ransom is paid, typically in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. Now, criminals prefer the crypto as it can be difficult to trace and recover. But as you can see from this capture here, the message presents the ransom demand, including how to pay the ransom in Bitcoin. And then once the payment is submitted, the victim is presented or provided with a decryption key. Now, it should be noted, there is no guarantee that the attacker is going to provide the victim with the decryption key. Okay, that's a complete risk. In fact, the authorities will recommend that you do not pay the ransom. And there are several kinds of ransomware that we can discuss. Lockers, which, as the name implies, locks the user out of the system. Encryptors, which are increasingly popular nowadays, which, as we discussed, encrypts the system files. We also have doxware or leakware, which really is a form of cyber extortion or cyber blackmail, in which they threaten to distribute the sensitive personal or company information until if they're not paid the fee. And in discussing these, it's good to discuss ransomware as a service, or RAAS. Now, this is a distribution model similar to cloud-based as a service offerings. So if you're familiar with cloud services like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, but only this is for ransomware. So the ransomware software is provided, and in exchange, the attacker would pay a percentage of the ransom to the person who provided the ransomware. And typically that would be around 30 or 40%. Now, in 2021, Colonial Pipeline was in the headlines after the company was attacked by the hacker group Carbon Spider, and their systems were infected by dark side ransomware. Colonial ended up paying the ransom of 75 Bitcoin, or equivalently to $4.4 million. Other prominent victims of ransomware include the San Francisco 49ers, the Costa Rican government, gaming chip manufacturer NVIDIA, and also the automaker Toyota. But one does not have to fall victim, as there are some defensive measures which can protect against ransomware. So this would include installing antivirus on your systems and making sure that the definitions are updated regularly, installing patches and fixes as soon as they are made available. Also implementing routine data backups. That way, if your data is locked away or encrypted, you still have a copy of it available. You also can disable unused ports and services, which serves to reduce the attack surface that the attacker can take advantage of. And then finally, installing firewalls. So let's pivot now to social engineering. Now, social engineering is not an attack, but instead is a tactic used behind many common attacks. So when we talk about social engineering, we're talking about psychological manipulation in order to deceive victims into performing a desired action or revealing sensitive information. Now, top type of social engineering attacks would be phishing, vishing, and smishing. Now, commonly, phishing is probably the most common social engineering done through email, but phishing can also be performed over voice, or vishing, which uses telephony, and SMS phishing or smishing, which uses text messages. Now, variants of phishing include watering hole attacks, spear phishing, and whaling. Now, these are targeted phishing attacks. A watering hole targets a group of individuals, say a company's employees, by infecting a site known to be frequented by the group with malware in the hopes of affecting those employees with the malware. Spear phishing targets a specific individual. Typically, this is going to be someone with information that the attacker desires. And then finally, whaling targets high-level individuals, such as company executives or members of the C-suite. So your CFO, your CEO, CISO, and the like. Now, social engineering can also be used to bypass physical security controls in order to gain access to a secured premises. This is called tailgating or piggybacking. So, for example, holding the door open for a person with their hands full is a courteous act which can be exploited by a malicious actor to bypass the key card access system, which protects the premises. And then scareware is also a type of social engineering which manipulates the victim into performing an action by creating panic or instilling anxiety in the target. So, for instance, a person may receive an email notifying them that their checking account has been compromised, and then instructs them to click the link to log in to their account to confirm the activity. So let's just take a little bit closer look at phishing. So this image is a spoofed phishing email. Now it purports to be from the target's bank, and you can note that the email appears to be genuine. You've got the SunTrust logo on there, information pertaining to contact numbers. So it looks upon at least initial glance to be genuine, but upon further inspection, there are some telltale signs which expose this email as a fake. So let's look at some of the signs. Misspellings are going to be common, as many of the phishing campaigns are originating outside of the United States. The attackers may not read or write fluent English. Thus, misspellings or spelling errors are going to be common. You'll also encounter awkward grammar, again, because the foreign attackers may not be proficient at English. So let's take an example here on this sentence highlighted here. We recently contacted you after noticing on your online account, which has been accessed unusually. That's it doesn't flow very well, right? It's not, it just screams as not being written by someone who's a native speaker. And we can also see here SunTrust is not capitalized. an account is, which wouldn't be needed to be, and then call at the start of this sentence here is not capitalized. So just finding mistakes that would be a good sign that this is not a legitimate email. Something else to also check is the link within the message. So you can see here it says visit suntrust.com, but that's not actually the URL that you're going to be taken to when you click that link. If you look on the lower left-hand corner, you can see the actual URL here is bit.ly. Now that's not a URL that would be used by a banking institution or some other financial institution. So by just taking a moment to look at the email, you can pick up clues as to whether or not this is legitimate or genuine. And even as a general rule, don't click links inside your emails. The best rule of thumb is, in this case, open up a browser, type suntrust.com into the address bar, and go directly to that site via the browser. Do not click the links, just to be safe. And then let's move to advanced persistent threats. Now, APTs are typically sponsored by nation states, and because of this, they're very well funded, they're highly skilled, and they employ very sophisticated attacks. And as indicated in their name, advanced persistent threat, they seek to establish a prolonged presence in the target system or the network. Now, according to the IBM Ponemon survey, the average dwell time, or that is the amount of time that they've managed to reach your system and maintain a presence in your system, is roughly 200 days. That means the attackers have existed in your environment for an average of 6 to 7 months. Now, a highly skilled attacker can do a great deal of damage in that amount of time. They have likely moved to compromise other systems. They've escalated privilege on the systems they have compromised, and they've most likely stolen sensitive data. Now, given the nature of APTs, they are perhaps among the top cyber threats facing the cybersphere. Now, it's imperative that countermeasures be put in place to guard against APTs. And these countermeasures include IDS-IPS, which is intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems. These are part of a continuous monitoring solution that inspects network activity to detect malicious activity. You have network behavior analysis, which basically establishes a baseline for normal activity, and then any anomalous activity can be investigated. Antivirus, again, antivirus applications, and make sure you update the definitions on a regular basis. You also have access controls. That is meaning managing the users and the resources they have access to. You can also automate the updates and upgrades process. That way, as soon as those updates are available, they're implemented or installed upon your systems. And then finally, we have threat hunting, which is a proactive activity to detect, contain, and remove any malicious presence within the network. And that brings us to another serious threat, the insider threat. Now, the insider threat, this refers to a risk that originates from within the organization. This could be an employee or perhaps another person who has access, such as a contractor or a vendor. Now, as the malicious insider already has access to your system, meaning, they're a regular authorized user, they haven't had to hack into anything, the threat they pose is difficult to guard against. Now, this is not to say impossible, but it can be difficult because of their pre-existing access. And there's really two kinds of insider threat. We have a malicious insider, which is acting deliberately to steal information or conduct sabotage or enact revenge. So, for example, a disgruntled employee who was passed over for promotion. You also have the unintentional, insider threat, whose actions, whose negligent actions lead to a breach or a compromise. Now, while there is no ill intent, the result can be the same, a breach system. And for insider threat countermeasures, several things we can implement here. Least privilege is one, and this is providing our users with only the level of access they need to perform their job and nothing more. You also have separation of duties. These are the division of critical duties among multiple users. And we do this so that no single user is able to compromise or misuse a system on their own. You also have account management, which is creation, deletion, updating, and maintaining user accounts. User behavior analysis, like network behavior analysis, user behavior analysis detects anomalies in behavior in order to uncover malicious activity. So for instance, you have a user who is accessing systems that they have not accessed in the past. Could be something worth investigating. And finally, we have data loss prevention. These systems look to prevent the theft of or the unauthorized access to sensitive data. And another serious attack that we have to worry about are zero-day attacks. Now, a zero-day attack is the exploiting of a vulnerability which is not generally known or for which there is no patch or fix. Now, zero-day attacks are notoriously difficult to prevent as they can evade traditional antivirus applications, because our antivirus application identifies malicious software by what's called either a signature or a definition. And so when it encounters a piece of software, it looks to see if that signature or definition matches, and if it does, it blocks it. But because there is no signature or definition for a zero-day attack, it can evade the traditional antivirus applications. And it's this nature of the zero-day attack which makes them especially dangerous. Now, there are some countermeasures for zero-day attacks that can reduce the risk of being a victim of one of the attacks, and perhaps minimize the damages that may result. The first of these is threat intelligence. You have a lot of security firms and vendors that are gathering intelligence about emerging threats and vulnerabilities, and they share this information. So leveraging this threat intelligence can allow an enterprise to take some proactive measures to mitigate the risk of a zero-day attack. And we also have next generation antivirus. So as discussed, the traditional antivirus relies on definitions or signatures to prevent infection, but the next generation AV systems employ a combination of AI, artificial intelligence, behavior detection, and machine learning to detect unknown threats that they detect based on the malicious behavior as opposed to a signature. And finally, the reduced attack surface. So we want to disable ports and services. We want to limit software to only that which is needed for the business. That way, the idea being that a smaller target is harder to hit. But there is one thing missing in all that I've discussed today, and that missing ingredient is you. There's currently a critical shortage of security professionals in the US. Some estimates place the number of unfilled positions at around 700,000. So that's 700,000 vacancies which desperately need to be filled. Now, the good news is for aspiring cyber security professionals that this dearth of personnel provides an opportunity for those looking to join the industry, as well as providing job security for those that are already working in the industry. So the question is, will you become a cyber Jedi and join the fight against the sinister agents of the dark side? The cyber sphere needs you. Will you answer the call? And with that, that concludes my presentation. I appreciate your time, and I am available to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Alex. That was awesome. Looks like we have some questions maybe coming in the chat. Give it just 1 second. Okay.
Thank you, Carmen. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Looks like how much will we see the Chat GPT LLM impact our current tools or techniques?
Yeah, I mean, as far as AI, we're in the infancy of AI, so it has yet to be determined what exactly or to what extent exactly that technology is going to impact what we do in cybersecurity. Now, there already are some technologies like machine learning and automation that are used within cybersecurity, but there's a lot of activities that are done within cybersecurity that require a human being. Okay, so it's going to be some time before the functions that require an actual live person are going to be replaced. But again, we're in the infancy of AI, so hard to predict what we may see from that. We'll just have to wait and see.
See, what's the best training pathway to get into identity and access management?
There are a number of good vendors out there. A lot of programs out there that will cater to lots of domains within cybersecurity, including IAM. So you would just have to search them out. And the good thing about some of these programs is you can achieve a certification along with them. So that way, while you're going through the course, you're able not only to complete the course, but you're also able to get a certification along the way. So that would be a good route. I mean, personally, I went through 4 years of college. I know not everybody wants to do 4 years. There was times where I didn't want to do 4 years, but I'm stuck with it and got through it. So a lot of options out there. You can research those on the web, and I don't know, Corey, do you know if Flatiron has anything specifically for IAM?
I don't know. Zach, do you have any?
For which one specifically?
For IAM, Identity Access Management.
Not particularly in our curriculum right now. That'd be something in development, but I know we just released some. We're definitely stepping into that arena. Just haven't done anything that's current on it right now, but I could expect it in the next few months.
Okay, great.
And then somebody asked if machine learning is part of cyber, or if AI and machine learning are part of cyber.
Are AI and machine learning part of cyber? Is that? Yeah, I mean, machine learning is definitely being used. You've got security tools, say like endpoint detection and response. CrowdStrike is the vendor, one of the popular vendors. They are incorporating machine learning. AI, I don't know that we're seeing that yet. If so, it's going to be in a very limited fashion, given where we are at with that particular technology. Definitely going to see more of it, for sure. But again, to what extent, and just what that looks like, we're going to have to wait and see. There's an old saying that, you shouldn't predict the future, because the future doesn't like being told what to do. So that's why I'm hesitant to make any predictions about the future and those technologies.
There's another question from Mariah. We might need a little more context, but says, what sort of projects do you recommend working on that may be beneficial to your career? Mariah, do you have anything specific that you're looking for? Are you talking about like certifications or lab projects?
Well, I mean, that would really depend on what you want to do. I mean, when we talk about cybersecurity, we're talking about a very diverse field. I mean, we have SIM and SOC Analyst, we have digital forensics, we have threat hunting, we have penetration testing, identity and access management, and I could go on and on. So it really depends on what part of the field that you want to get into. Safe and some of those are free and online. So, for example, if you're interested in penetration testing, there's a site called Over the Wire, which you can go and practice those kind of skills. But yeah, really going to depend on what you're looking to do for that area of cybersecurity that you're interested in.
What are the best ways to gain experience to secure the entry-level cybersecurity roles that require 5 years of experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because that's something that all, somebody who's come out of school or a program like Flatiron wants to know, because when you look at some of these job ads, they are wanting years of experience, and that'll vary. Sometimes it'll be 5 years, sometimes it'll be 3 to 5 years. For me, my approach was I started going to school, and then I got into IT generally. Okay. I started working at the service desk level, which was very informative as far as exposing me to new technologies and new software, and basically the process of what we call IT service management, which is going to be something that goes hand in hand with cybersecurity. So just working in IT generally, I think, is going to be beneficial. It may not be specific security experience, but you're still learning in that field. You're learning about the systems, you're learning about networks, you're learning about software. So that's all usable in cybersecurity. And then after putting in a few years of what I would call general IT experience, that helped me get my foot into the door and as far as cybersecurity. But something I'll note is, just because an employer says, hey, we want this many years of experience, doesn't mean that they'll find candidates with that many years of experience. As we discussed, there's a huge vacancy in this field, and these positions need to get filled. So what you'll often see is an employer will take as close as they can get. And we've also had students within Flatiron who are coming out of the program. They have no experience as far as cybersecurity, and they're able to find positions.
Do you have any websites for lab projects as a beginner for cyber practice?
Perhaps sites that maybe not really sure about projects, but when you look at cybersecurity sites, sans.org is going to have a wealth of information there pertaining specifically to cybersecurity. There's also, let's see here, trying to remember some that may address some kind of activity. I mean, you have DVWA, which is a hack the box is a good one. DVWA is for say web applications and software vulnerabilities. That's a good place to pick up some helpful labs as far as learning at least penetration testing and maybe some defensive cybersecurity information. Again, you can search online for these sites, that there shouldn't be too hard to find. If you're looking, also maybe W3, it's W3 schools can also have some good information and you know, kind of exercise or lab type projects to learn. Okay, I don't know where our time stands, Corey. Do we have
We have
more
about 9
questions?
minutes left. I'm looking at, there's about 7 more questions, so I'm going through them right now.
Okay.
Somebody's asking about certification like CompTIA Security Plus, if you recommend that, if they're already gone through a boot camp.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, what you'll find in many of the job postings for security, especially entry level security, is going to be Security Plus from CompTIA. Highly recommend that exam. Don't know the price right off. I think it's a few $100s, but that is well worth the money. I mean, getting a certification like that, because CompTIA has a good reputation within the industry. So people who have those certifications are generally recognized as people who know their material.
We also have recordings on our YouTube channel, so I put that in the chat right now. That will have any of the cyber presentations that we've done, and you can find some good information there. Could you tell us a little bit more about CCSP?
Talking about the CISSP or just the CSSP?
See, Moses, can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
On the comps,
Just the CSP.
Okay, so if he's talking about the CSSP, that's a certification from ISC Squared. They are a security exam vendor. They offer a number of certifications. I have a SSCP from them, which is a security system certified professional exam. Those are good exams. They are pricey and they are difficult. Out of all the certification exams I've taken, the ones from ISC Squared are the most difficult, at least from my experience. They are a reputable vendor though, so definitely those certifications or their certifications are going to be something employers are going to be happy to see, especially the CISSP, which is really the holy grail of security certifications. That's one that they offer, and you know, anybody that's like a CISO or a project manager for security most likely has a CISSP. You can check out their site for more detailed information on their particular certifications and what they entail.
Are there any
I see.
new cybersecurity technologies that you'd like to recommend?
As far as new, I mean, we've discussed machine learning, where we're starting to see more and more of that. And I think that trend will continue. We've discussed AI, which undoubtedly AI is going to play a part. We just don't know to what extent. I mean, right now, one of the concerns for AI is that it's going to replace jobs and put people out of work. But as I mentioned, there are many things within cybersecurity presently that require an actual living person. So I don't think that's an immediate concern. Maybe, you know, a few years, 10 years down the road, that might change. But those are really probably the newest ones that we're going to see continue to be developed and be used more often.
Outside of certifications, what do you say are the most important soft skills to have?
Soft skills, yes, very important. And when you look at, you know, what employers want, and this has been confirmed in surveys, they want people who can communicate effectively, meaning they can read and write effectively. They can speak to an audience effectively. And this is important for cybersecurity, because if you go out and you start talking to a group of say stakeholders or your client who does not know the industry terminology or the nomenclature, and you know, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're not going to understand the word you're saying. So you really have to be able to speak to them, I guess you can say, in layman's terms. You're going to have to be able to articulate what we do in cybersecurity in terms that everyone can understand. So that's going to be an important skill as well.
Okay, unless there's any questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We do have an info session if you want to learn a little bit more about our cybersecurity program. I did drop that link in the chat. We'll just go a little bit more in depth about what the program is, talk to one of our technical coaches. But thank you, Alex, for an amazing presentation. That was so much fun. And thank you, Zach, for joining and helping out with our admissions questions. And look for a recording in the next 2 to 3 business days. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.